Looking for a trusted supplier for all your household hardware needs? Look no further than Competitive Hardware Limited. We provide top quality building materials including cement, all types of iron sheets, paints, PPR and PVC pipes, electric pipes, building grills, BRC and square till in various sizes. Need interior and finishing materials? We've got you covered with gypsum rails, marine boards, ceiling boards and tanks of all sizes. For fencing, we stock barbed wire, chain link and wire mesh. And the best part, we offer free countrywide delivery with our fleet of transit trucks and pickups. Your order arrives on time, every time. Visit us in Kitengela along Namanga Highway, opposite 411 stage, or at our branches in Kitisuru and Busia. For enquiries, call us on 020-26-88-888 or 0733-666632 or 0721-923248. Competitive Hardware Limited, your reliable hardware supplier. Competitive Manpower International Limited is recruiting delivery riders in the United Arab Emirates. If you have a passion for the road and a desire to work in a fast-paced environment, then this is your chance. Don't wait. Send your applications to competitivemanpower@gmail.com. Want to apply in person? Visit our offices at Kiko Road behind the Casa Hotel, KCB River Road, Nairobi. For more details, call us now on 0721 506627 or 0733 392180. Act. First opportunities are limited. Secure your spot today and start your journey as a delivery rider in the United Arab Emirates. Looking to build a better future in the Gulf? Exciting job opportunities in Saudi Arabia for Kenyans. Competitive Manpower International Limited is currently recruiting for a wide range of skilled and semi-skilled positions. We are now hiring helpers for 1,200 Saudi riyals, steel fixers at 1,500 Saudi riyals, shuttering carpenters at 1,500 Saudi riyals, masons at 1,500 Saudi riyals, charge hands at 1,500 Saudi riyals, foremen at 1,800 Saudi riyals, scaffolders at 1,200 Saudi riyals, welders at 1,500 Saudi riyals, and plumbers at 1,500 Saudi riyals. Call us today on 020-222-4844 or 0721-506627 or 0733-392180.
A fine morning to you. Welcome to the CBS newspaper review. Today we'll be taking you, my name is DANFLOW, LINDWE, and today we'll be taking you through the top headlines making the newspapers today, and we'll be going through the Daily Nation as well as the Standard. And for our top story, I'll start by reading out the headlines. And in the Standard, that is Kenya's bold newspaper, they write Ruto's loan games. And in the Daily Nation, the top story is family of 9 burnt to death in LINDWE. Very interesting story. So we'll start with the Standard newspaper, where the top story is about Ruto's 5-day visit in China. And according to the Standard Nation, it's like Ruto is playing a cat and mouse game as President William Ruto lashed out at broken global financial institutions in Beijing, saying the system is outdated and unfit for purpose. His Treasury CS was thousands of miles away in Washington, D.C., meeting World Bank officials to discuss Kenya's economic path since taking office. Ruto has made a habit of playing both sides, critics abroad and collaborator. He's a critic at home and he's a critic abroad while being a collaborator at home. That is what the Standard is saying. Page 4, that story can be found on page 4 of the Standard newspaper. And yeah, on the top page you can see President William Ruto with Chinese president having a handshake. Yeah. And yeah, let's see the top story here at the Daily Nation. Now, for the top story at the Daily Nation is wiped out. A man, his family, and their 7 children went to bed on Tuesday night in Siaya village in a Siaya County village, hoping to wake up to a new day. But this was never to be. With their house locked from outside, they all died a painful death in a horror arson attack. Their screams for help choked by huge plumes of smoke as they were consumed by raging flames in the dead of the night. Police suspect a dispute over land could be the reason behind this heinous act. That's a very sad story. So the caretaker in neighboring homestead said he was awoken by pungent smell of petrol. Very sad story there. Other stories highlighted in the Daily Nation. On the top left, we have leading contenders for IEBC top job. It's a question they posed. So the race for the next chairperson of the Electoral Commission has reportedly narrowed to 4 candidates. That is Erastus Ethekon, Anne Amadi, Charles Nyachai, and Abdul Kadir Ramadan, as the selection panel works around the clock to meet the deadline. So that is also on page 4 of the Standard newspaper. Very interesting story. We are hoping to see who will become the next chairperson of the IEBC Commission to replace former chairperson, that was the late Wafula Chebukati. Also in the Daily Nation, cracks in Ruto-Raila marriage. So President William Ruto allies have accused members of the ODM party led by Raila Odinga camp of engaging in political blackmail against the head of state within the broad-based government, escalating tensions that risk a messy fallout. Very interesting story. We're hoping to see how that develops. And remember, we are still mourning the passing of Pope Francis, and the Vatican had announced 9 days of mourning. And here the Daily Nation, the Pope Francis' body is carried in a coffin into St. Peter's Basilica at the Vatican yesterday on the day of its translation or public viewing. So more than 20,000 people gathered at the square to pay their respects to the pontiff who died on Monday. There's a picture of the Pope in his coffin, and it is being carried as mourners gather and watch. Also, so why 12 coins will be placed, still on the Pope story, why 12 coins will be placed in Pope's coffin before it is closed tomorrow. So a thin red book written in 1998 and revised in 2024 is controlling the events. It's controlling the events in the Vatican after the death of Pope Francis on Monday. So it is titled Ordo Excusarem. It's right of burial for Roman Pontiff. Its provisions were followed to the latter yesterday as Francis' body was carried to St. Peter's Basilica and placed for public viewing, an event called translation of the body. So as we have seen from the Vatican, there are a lot of rituals, specific set of rituals that are to be followed as the Pope is being sent off to rest in peace. Now we move to the Standard newspaper. Another top story in the Standard newspaper is Obado admits affair impregnating Sharon. So this is a case that happened in 2018, still an ongoing case in court. So former Migori Governor Obado gives emotional courtroom testimony, admits affair with slain student Sharon Otieno. He says it was an open secret, but family denies involvement in her murder. Very interesting story. We're hoping to see how that develops. Will justice be found, or who killed Sharon? We hope to find that out soon enough. Now, highlighting also another story here inside the Standard newspaper, we move to education story where CBC learners shun STEM courses for arts language in new survey. I've also seen a similar story in the Daily Nation. They're talking about CBC transition. As we know, next year from January, we'll be having the first cohort of grade 10 learners join senior secondary school in 2026, and the Ministry of Education is currently preparing for this, and they are supposed to choose between 3 pathways, that is STEM, arts and social sciences. But according to a report, a majority of pioneer learners under the new education system prefer not to pursue science-related subjects in senior secondary schools. Instead, a new survey shows these learners prefer studying languages, literature, arts, and pursuing careers in the creative economy. A first-of-its-kind study on grade 9 students reveals that most competency-based curriculum learners are likely to shun science subjects in senior school. The study, conducted by Central Careers between July and April 2025, involved 16,045 learners across 147 schools in 16 counties. Now, the study finds that most learners are likely to avoid STEM courses, STEM subjects. A gender breakdown revealed that more female learners, that is 9,144, than male learners were assessed. Of the total 5,315 students, that is the 3%, chose STEM pathway. Now, initially, the Ministry of Education had hoped that more learners will pursue, that is up to 60% of the learner population would actually pursue STEM courses. But a survey here shows, a first of its kind survey actually, shows that more learners have opted for the arts and social and sports pathway. A similar story being highlighted here, almost a related story actually, highlighted here at the Daily Nation. National schools to offer all three pathways, Education Minister says. So all national schools will offer the three career pathways in senior school due to their capacity, staffing, and infrastructure, Education Cabinet Secretary Julius Ogamba has announced. The three pathways on offer in senior schools are social sciences, arts and sports, and STEM courses. Now, further, the categorization of schools based on regions will be abolished from next year when learners in grade 9 transit to grade 10 in January. Instead, the schools will be classified either triple pathway or double pathway. So all schools, national schools, will be offering up to 3 pathways, while other schools will offer up to 2 pathways. According to the CS, no school will offer a single pathway, so that learners have a broad choice, that are given a chance to choose more. Now, the CS said the state has already developed guidelines for transition and placement of students to grade 10 in January. He said that the abolishment of categorization, that is the categorization of schools based on maybe county, sub-county schools, extra county school, that categorization is being abolished. This is a quote by the CS. He says, "I am sure all of you have been involved in the formulation of the guidelines, which were also subjected to nationwide formulation of the guidelines, which were also subjected to the nationwide discussions last month during the county dialogues," he said during a conference, the ongoing principals conference in Mombasa. So based on this, I urge, the CS continues, I urge all the schools represented here to adopt the triple pathway category owing to your superior status in staffing, infrastructure, and history of academic performance. Under the arrangement, we will also encourage schools to offer boarding and day sections. Now, the Teachers Service Commission, that is CEO, led by CEO Nancy Macharia, is urging principals of national schools to adopt the new categories. So more particularly, this is a quote by Nancy Macharia. She says, "More particularly with your overtly superior facilities, I am confident that you will make the difference by offering all the 3 pathways that will define the competency-based curriculum." So we know that the 844 system is slowly being phased out. It was fully phased out in primary schools. That is after 38 years of the 844 system, and we're still having it in secondary schools, which it's still being slowly phased out. We're hoping to see how that develops. There have been a lot of issues to do with infrastructure, availability of resources, laboratories, and classrooms even. And we're hoping to see how the Ministry of Education responds to that, particularly come next year, January, when the learners will be joining senior school for the first time. Now we move on to the top story, to the story about IEBC on page 4. We expound on it a bit. So as we know, there has been a push for the election, for the replacement of the IEBC commissioners, which ought to have been done a while back. That is according to the constitution. Are these the top candidates for IEBC, boss? That's a question being posed by the Daily Nation. So works awaits reconstituted commission expected to conduct by-elections and run the 2027 elections. So sources within the IEBC selection panel say the team has narrowed down to 4 candidates from the 11 that were interviewed. So one of them is Anne Amadi. We have Abdul Kadir Ramadan, Charles Nyachai, and Erastus Ethakon. The race to the next chairperson of the Electoral Commission has reportedly narrowed down to 4 people as the committee works around the clock to meet the deadline. Multiple sources within the commission selection panel recruiting chairperson told the Nation that Mr. Erastus Ethokon, Abdul Kadir Ramadan, Charles Nyachai, and Anne Amadi are leading the pack of the 11 who were interviewed for the position. A quote from a member of the selection panel says, "We will definitely choose 2 names from the 4 and forward to the president, from which he will nominate 1 and transmit it to the National Assembly for vetting." The revelations was corroborated by another member of the panel that is finalizing interviews for commission members. The 9-member IEBC selection panel is set to conclude the interviews today. So by the end of the day, 2 names will be forwarded to President William Ruto, who will then nominate 1 person who will be interviewed by the National Assembly. Other than conducting the 2027 general election, the reconstituted commission is required to undertake the delayed electoral and barriers delimitation and various by-elections. So the list of names, the IEBC Act states that after conducting interviews, the selection panel shall select 2 persons qualified for chairperson and 9 qualified to be appointed as members of the commission and forward the names to President William Ruto. The president shall from the list nominate 1 person for appointment as the chairperson and 6 for appointment as members of the commission. It further requires that the president, within 7 days of receipt of the names, to forward the names of nominees to the National Assembly approval hearings. So this is a developing story, and we'll be keeping you updated on as it goes on. We also have live coverage of the selection committee, particularly when they show up before the National Assembly led by Speaker Moses Wetangula. And still on political matters, Ruto's allies now accuse Raila's camp of blackmail. Tensions have been simmering within the broad-based government following hardline positions. They say Ruto's allies, they say their ODM counterparts are now blackmailing the head of state. Very interesting story, this one, particularly since this was the first handshake that Kenyans were actually opposing, and President William Ruto's allies have accused Raila Odinga and his camp of engaging in political blackmail against the head of state, escalating tensions that risk a messy fallout. Yesterday, Odinga held talks with DNA party leader, that is Godfrey Kanoti. The DNA is a newly launched outfit bringing together anti-Ruto forces that have vowed to unite with other opposition figures to end his hold on power in 2027. Now, at the DNA launch earlier this month, Wiper leader, that is Kalonzo Musyoka, and Jubilee Secretary General Jeremiah Kioni led a group dubbed the Loyal Opposition at the party's national delegates conference, where they pledged to craft a new NAC-style coalition. However, Odinga clarified that Kanoti had merely dropped for a tete on national issues and political party governance issues. So Raila says, "We remain committed to pluralism of views and multi-party politics in general." So we're hoping to see how that develops. Will there be a fallout, or will ODM party and President William Ruto continue working together in this new handshake? And to the top story here of the family of 9 burned to death in Alandro. Very sad story, actually. So witnesses say he saw a padlock on the door of the house as the fire consumed it and the people were inside. So at a glance, Mr. Leonard Ochieng, an uncle of Ouma Opondo's wife, said that she had told him that Mr. Owino had helped them some years back when one of their uncles died in Nairobi by providing transport to ferry the body back to the village. He was to be compensated with a piece of land. The conflict, he said, arose after Owino extended the boundary and acquired an extra 2 acres. When Opondo realized this, he went to court. The case went on for many years, but Opondo recently won the case. A very sad story. The family members were locked inside the house with a padlock before they were burnt inside, allegedly over a land dispute that has been determined by the court. Moving on to health matters, we have here an allegation of scandals of double SHA deductions. So patients are also being forced to make out-of-pocket payments. So according to this story, on April 16th, Michael Kinyanjui made what thought would be a routine hospital visit, accompanied by his wife, a cancer patient, due to her chemotherapy sessions. They arrived at the Jaramogi Oginga Teaching and Referral Hospital in Kisumu, hopeful for a smooth process under the new government health insurance scheme, that is SHA. But Mr. Kinjui, who is the principal holder of the SHA account, has registered his wife as a dependent. At the hospital, a deduction was made of 26,000 shillings from his account for oncology services. So as the treatment was about to begin, we were informed that one of the chemotherapy drugs was out of stock. The hospital then referred us to Blue Ridge Clinic, a private facility, to source for missing drugs. So when they went to the other facility, according to the transactions seen by the Daily Nation, 3 pre-authorizations were lodged for the same transactions, which came at different times of the day, but the same amount. So this has left me questioning the integrity of SHA. This is a quote by Mr. Kinyanjui. This has left me questioning the integrity of SHA system, because why would the deductions be done twice for the same procedure and an OTP, that is a one-time password, sent 4 times to two different people, and no explanation is given? We're hoping to see maybe that was a glitch in the system, or the Ministry of Health can actually respond to that, because the SHA system has been facing a lot of complaints, particularly from Kenyans who says there are issues with payments, access, and while many are yet to actually on board to the SHA system, those who are using the NHIF, many are yet to actually on board to the SHA system. We are hoping the Ministry of Education, the Ministry of Health can respond to that to ensure that the health sector is running smoothly. Now, recently, in Education Matters, we had a story here. We had highlighted a story here where the Education Cabinet Secretary, that is Julius Ogamba, had fired the council members of the University of Nairobi. Now, the Daily Nation here gives an update of that story, where they say UN Council reinstated by court, summoned by anti-corruption agency. So the High Court has reinstated members of the Council of the University of Nairobi, whose appointments were recently revoked by Education Cabinet Secretary Julius Ogamba. In another twist, the members of the council have been summoned by the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission in relation to the alleged irregular payment of their allowances. Now, through a Gazette notice on April 11th, Mr. Ogamba revoked the appointments of Sally Toroitich, Ahmed Abdullahi, Dr. Pamain Ole, Narakai, Karen Kerubo, as well as members of the UN Council, and appointed them to councils of other universities. Now, the chair of the council, that is Professor Amuko Anangi, was not affected by these changes. However, Ahmed Sheikh Abdullahi filed a petition in court seeking to reverse the move, and Justice Lawrence Mugambi issued the conservatory orders staying the revocation pending hearing of the petition, directed that the matter be mentioned before Justice Bahati Mwanye on May 13th. So we are hoping to see how that develops. UN Council, the council usually, we have reported previously of a number of cases, issues actually surrounding the UN Council the University of Nairobi Council, and we are hoping the wrangles can be resolved soon to ensure smooth running of the operations at the university. Another top story now, this is an intersection of international story as well as local news. We remember a former presidential candidate some years back, that was Mohamed Abduba Dida. Now Mwalimu Dida finally walks free from US jail to philanthropy. From US jail to philanthropy, Mwalimu Dida finally walks free. So Mr. Mohamed Abduba Dida, the two-time presidential candidate who was convicted in the US, has been released from prison. Mr. Dida walked out of the Big Muddy Correctional Center on March 4th. He was released on parole. Parole is the early release of a prisoner before he or she completes a sentence on account of good behavior, which must be maintained out of prison. So we reported this earlier. This is actually a developing story because he had been in prison following a dispute with his wife while he was abroad. Now we'll take a short commercial break, but we'll be right back with more updates on business, international news, as well as sports. Please stay tuned.
Looking for a trusted supplier for all your household hardware needs? Look no further than Competitive Hardware Limited. We provide top quality building materials including cement, all types of iron sheets, paints, PPR and PVC pipes, electric pipes, building grills, BRC and square till in various sizes. Need interior and finishing materials? We've got you covered with gypsum rails, marine boards, ceiling boards and tanks of all sizes. For fencing, we stock barbed wire, chain link and wire mesh. And the best part, we offer free countrywide delivery with our fleet of transit trucks and pickups. Your order arrives on time, every time. Visit us in Kitengela along Namanga Highway, opposite 411 stage, or at our branches in Kitisuru and Busia. For enquiries, call us on 020-26-88888 or 0733-666632 or 0721-923248. Competitive Hardware Limited, your reliable hardware supplier. Competitive Manpower International Limited is recruiting delivery riders in the United Arab Emirates. If you have a passion for the road and a desire to work in a fast-paced environment, then this is your chance. Don't wait. Send your applications to competitivemanpower@gmail.com. Want to apply in person? Visit our offices at Kiko Road behind the Casa Hotel, KCB River Road, Nairobi. For more details, call us now on 0721 506627 or 0733 392180. Act Fast opportunities are limited. Secure your spot today and start your journey as a delivery rider in the United Arab Emirates. Looking to build a better future in the Gulf? Exciting job opportunities in Saudi Arabia for Kenyans. Competitive Manpower International Limited is currently recruiting for a wide range of skilled and semi-skilled positions. We are now hiring helpers for 1,200 Saudi riyals, steel fixers at 1,500 Saudi riyals, shuttering carpenters at 1,500 Saudi riyals, masons at 1,500 Saudi riyals, charge hands at 1,500 Saudi riyals, foremen at 1,800 Saudi riyals, scaffolders at 1,200 Saudi riyals, welders at 1,500 Saudi riyals, and plumbers at 1,500 Saudi riyals. Call us today on 020-222-4844 or 0721-506627 or 0733-392180.
Now, welcome back from that short commercial break. We continue with our newspaper review this morning. I now want to highlight for you a few court stories making headlines. And one of the most interesting ones here is how smugglers are making money from praying mantises, a report reveals. Now, recently we reported to you how there are people actually smuggling ants, queen ants, and exotic insects. Now we have a new group of people smuggling praying mantises. Now, an ongoing ants smuggling case has revealed that other insects are also finding their way in the international markets. An expert report shows that praying mantises are being illegally whisked away from the country for food or for beauty keeping. Now, the report was submitted to the Jomo Kenyatta International Airport Magistrate Njeri Thuku regarding the 1.3 million shillings ant smuggling saga. Now, last week, two 18-year-olds from Belgium, that is Loronoy David and Sepe, a Vietnamese, Nguyen, a 26-year-old Kenyan, that is Dennis Nganga, admitted to smuggling at least 5,000 queen ants. Now, the report by the Kenya Wildlife Service indicates that smuggling ants and praying mantis has been going on for over 6 years. Now, this is a quote by a quote on the report. It says, the commonly trafficked species include praying mantis, garden harvester ants, and other live ant species. In all these incidences, the consignments were destined to jurisdictions outside Kenya but misdeclared. Now, live insects are usually stashed in syringes but labeled as wooden carvings or toys, and recently test tubes. Now, the Kenya Wildlife Service further says the tubes are manufactured in China and are purposely made in such a way that the scanners cannot detect anything inside. Now, these advanced tubes can sustain the ants for up to 2 months, but also obscure visibility, making it difficult for scanning devices such as X-ray machines to detect them. Now, this is interesting. The smuggling of insects in Kenya has been going on for the past 6 years, and we're hoping to see how the Ministry of Tourism responds to that, or how will this be regulated. Still on court matters, the Standard here highlights a story of court papers say county officials paid millions for zero deliveries. Now, the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission slams City Hall officials who paid over 407 million for supplies that were never delivered. Many of the 14 implicated companies share directors, addresses, and bank accounts. Now, up to 152 million shillings, money that Joseph Gadhaka, a chief officer, allegedly authorized, while another official, Mohammed Abdirahman, gave the nod for the payment of up to 135 million. So these are court cases developing. Also on another court case, this is actually an interesting one by former Kiambu governor, that is Ferdinand Waititu, popularly known as Baba Yao. So Waititu allowed to amend appeal in 558 million shillings graft case. So the High Court has granted jailed former Kiambu Governor Ferdinand Waititu permission to amend his appeal against his conviction and sentencing in the 588 million shillings corruption case. So Justice Lucy Njuguna of the Anti-Corruption and Economic Crimes Division allowed Waititu to revise his petition to include a fresh application for bail and bond. So now Waititu plans to introduce new evidence as he fights this case and seeks to fight his conviction, which he has been allowed to do so, and we're hoping to see how that story develops. This is actually one of the very few times Kenyans are witnessing an alleged corrupt politician in prison, and we're hoping to see maybe more of that can happen to deter politicians and leaders from using state money for wrong purpose. Yeah, interesting story, that one, and we'll be keeping you updated. Please stay tuned here at the CBS Breakfast Show and also at other bulletins for more stories. Now, moving on to matters of still on matters education, you're seeing here a story of TVET enrollment soars to 600,000, says Ogamba. Now, notice this also comes at a time when we are having learner appetite in applying for universities slots under the KUCCPS, and we have seen the CEO, that is KUCCPS, that Mercy Wahome, calling on students. She even actually extended the deadline to allow for varsity learners who are set to join varsity to apply for slots, but only half of them actually applied. And now here we're seeing a story where enrollment in TVETs is actually on the rise. So the government's push to raise the enrollment in technical and vocational education and training institutions has borne fruit after the numbers recently rose from 375,000 to 600,000. That is almost double. Now, Education Cabinet Secretary Julius Ogamba said they were carrying out a sensitization campaign with the government to achieve its 2 million target. He said the mindset that TVET programs are for those who failed to secure university places was now changing, with qualified students opting to enroll in TVET institutions to gain technical skills. Now, he spoke yesterday during a 3-day retreat in Mombasa, where principals are actually meeting for their annual meeting. It was themed Strengthening Leadership, Government and Innovation for Transformative TVET. TVET institutions, the Ministry of Education aims to have at least one TVET institution in each constituency. And so far, progress has been made on that to ensure youth across the country are equipped with the market-relevant skills skills that are relevant for the market for them to secure employment. TVET institutions are actually one among the institutions to actually highlight, because they even having TVET institutions that are having baby care centers to support young mothers in their learning. So interesting story there. So moving on to matters business now. A story by Business Daily: lenders face fines for hidden charges amid loans pushback. Now, the Central Bank of Kenya will now require lenders to give full disclosures outlining borrowing costs. And this is as financial institutions move to court seeking to bar Treasury CS from interfering in the pricing of loans. So the Central Bank of Kenya is intensifying its crackdown on hidden charges in the pricing of loans with a landmark proposal that will, for the first time, compel mobile lenders to transparently outline all borrowing costs or face penalties. Now, this came as local lenders moved to court to lock out the National Treasury from having a say in how they price their loans. A newly released consultative paper details plans to overhaul the existing risk-based lending model and subject the rapidly expanding mobile loan sector in stringent new closure requirements. Now, the regulators' review of the risk-based credit pricing model introduced in 2019 revealed widespread inconsistencies and imposition of opaque other charges by commercial banks, obscuring the trust cost of credit. Now, on-site inspections indicated a divergence from models' intended application, with lenders often applying discounts to initial inflated rates. So we are hoping to see how that story develops. The lending rates in Kenya, particularly businesses, for personal emergencies, many Kenyans need loans from time to time. So the falling rate, 10.76%, 10.75%, the central bank rate as announced by the Apex Bank's Monetary Policy Committee in February. So Central Bank Governor Kamau Thuge is coming out for lenders. He is on their case, and we're hoping to see how that develops. Will Kenyans finally get to a full transparency from their lenders, or will they continue getting opaque additional charges in their loans? Now, U.S. team to jet in for talks on Trump's tariffs. Now, a delegation from the United States is expected in Nairobi next week as the country seeks a deal to scrap the 10% tariff imposed on Kenyan exports by President Donald Trump. Now, Principal Secretary State Department for Industry, that is Juma Mukhwana, said yesterday Kenya's position is to have Africa grow Africa Growth and Opportunity Act extended, that is the AGOA Act, extended beyond the September deadline, and the Kenya-US Strategic Trade and Investment Partnership finalized. So a quote by Mr. Mkwana. So on the US situation, the Kenyan government has been very clear. We have the request that we have put on the table. The 10% tariff should be removed because we are already negotiating and are on the tail end of agreement. Mr. Mkwana said, he said if any issues need to be captured, then they must become part of the STIP agreement. So we are hoping to see how that develops as delegates from the United Nations, from the United States of America arrive in Kenya next week for negotiations with Kenya's Treasury regarding that new tariff imposed by President of US, that is Donald Trump. Moving on to other matters on shipping and logistics. Now, shippers now stare at new stiff carbon levy. The tax will apply to large ocean-going ships for over 5,000 gross tonnage that are considered big polluters. Now, the carbon levy on ship emissions is likely to burden consumers in Kenya and Africa, despite the continent contributing the least to greenhouse gases. The levy that was mooted 2 weeks ago has drawn mixed reactions, with importers saying it will be a huge burden, although the aspect of environmental protection is important. Now, shipping lines globally are already preparing to implement the tax on containers come 2028, after it was decided by the United Nations International Maritime Organization in London, following negotiations among member states that include Kenya. Interesting stories are making business, interesting headlines there, making business stories. And we're hoping to see how that goes, because environmental pollution is actually, it's still it ought to be looked out on, because environmental pollution affects us entirely. And on matters real estate, high rents amid demand leave tenants with empty pockets. Now, increased expenditure is as a result of slow development that does not match population growth. Now, over 38,000 shillings, this is the price for a 5-bedroom apartment in Nairobi City. However, for 37,000 shillings 500, you get a 3-bedroom apartment in Kajiado. 30%, this is the recommended amount to spend on housing for households according to industry standards. And while Mombasa is a city, Kiambu County has many dormitory towns of Nairobi City, which have generally necessitated higher property and rent values in towns. So yeah, there's a disparity in rent prices in different parts of the country, and it is affecting where people live, the choices of the houses they pick, and some tenants are actually leaving the houses. They're not occupying houses that are very costly. Please check out that story on The Standard. And we finalize with sports stories this morning. Guardiola, the back story here, the top story at the back of The Standard newspaper is Guardiola joy as Man City keep Champions League hopes alive. Now, the citizens moved into third spot after dramatic win over Villa, and Pep's side now control their own fate with 4 games left. Now, Pep Guardiola admitted his wild celebration of Matheus Nunes' stoppage time winner against Aston Villa felt strange because Manchester City don't score as many late goals as their Premier League rivals. Now, Nunes fired City to a crucial 2-1 victory over top 5 rivals Villa in the 4th minute of stoppage time in the Etihad Stadium. So the players behave unbelievable. This is a quote by Pep Guardiola, Manchester City manager. He says the players behave unbelievable. We are so pleased. We are in the last 4 games and we are a Champions League contender for the qualifications. Interesting story, that one. For sports, let us see what the Daily Nation also highlighted, particularly on sports matters. So for the Daily Nation, there is a story. They say sports crisis. Sports dispute tribunal stops National Olympic Committee of Kenya set for today. That is an interesting story. Another story here is Kipchoge aims to bounce back after difficult 2024. So London Marathon double Olympic champion eyes glory in Sunday's race. So Eliud Kipchoge, the two-time Olympic marathon champion, is looking to bounce back from a disappointing 2024 season as he lines up for the 2025 London Marathon set to happen on Sunday. Kipchoge, who is among the greatest marathoners of all time, will be competing in the prestigious race for the 6th time in British capital, seeking to reclaim his dominance. The London Marathon is part of the 7 abort marathon majors, which include the Tokyo Marathon, Boston Marathon, London Marathon, Sydney Marathon, Berlin Marathon, Chicago Marathon, and the New York Marathon. So Kenyans John Korir and Sharon Lekodi won the men's and women's editions of this year's Boston Marathon on Monday. And having won 15 marathons and lost just 3 since he began his marathon career in 2013, Kipchoge, who is 40 years old now, remains motivated to continue making history in long distance running. And we wish him all the best this Sunday. And Kenyans will definitely be watching the London Marathon on Sunday as they cheer one of the greatest marathoners from our country, and as he carries the Kenyan flag abroad. Now, another story here by Gor Mahia. Gor Mahia face FC Talanta amid technical bench wars. So Kogalo are currently third with 47 points, 4 points adrift of league leaders Tusker. Now, defending champions Gor Mahia will aim to put aside their technical bench wrangles and keep their title ambitions alive when they host FC Talanta in a rescheduled Football Kenya Federation Premier League match at Dandora Stadium in Nairobi today. So the club's executive committee was locked in a meeting late yesterday to decide the fate of the technical bench amid deep divisions within the team. Croatian head coach, that is Sinisa Mishik, has clashed with his assistant Zedekiah Otieno, Michael Nam, and team manager Victor Nyaom over the exclusive management of playing unit. So you're hoping to see that how that goes. This is actually a game that is being played today here in Nairobi. Please ensure you watch them, follow them on social media, and cheer them as they play. More sports, a number of sports to look out for. Remember, our junior starlets team is in Cairo, and they have a match against Cameroon. Remember, they had a game recently last week here at the Nyayo National Stadium where they lost 1-0 to the Cameroon team, and now they have a chance to redeem their glory playing against the Cameroonian team still in Cairo, and we wish them all the best. Stay updated, stay tuned, ensure you cheer our teams, our marathoners across the different games. Yeah, and that sports review marks the end of our newspaper review this morning. Please ensure to grab yourself a copy of the newspapers today, the dailies, to delve deeper into the stories I have highlighted for you, and also find out what I have not highlighted for you this morning. Join us tomorrow still for a newspaper review, and stay tuned for more updates during the day at 1 p.m., 4 p.m. and 7 p.m. and 9 p.m. news. Thank you for staying tuned. Cheers.
Competitive Manpower International Limited is recruiting delivery riders in the United Arab Emirates. If you have a passion for the road and a desire to work in a fast-paced environment, then this is your chance. Don't wait. Send your applications to competitivemanpower@gmail.com. Want to apply in person? Visit our offices at Kiko Road behind the Casa Hotel, KCB River Road, Nairobi. For more details, call us now on 0721 506627 or 0733 392180. Act. First opportunities are limited. Secure your spot today and start your journey as a delivery rider in the United Arab Emirates.
Looking to build a better future in the Gulf? Exciting job opportunities in Saudi Arabia for Kenyans. Competitive Manpower International Limited is currently recruiting for a wide range of skilled and semi-skilled positions. We are now hiring helpers for 1,200 Saudi riyals, steel fixers at 1,500 Saudi riyals, shuttering carpenters at 1,500 Saudi riyals, masons at 1,500 Saudi riyals, charge hands at 1,500 Saudi riyals, foremen at 1,800 Saudi riyals, scaffolders at 1,200 Saudi riyals, welders at 1,500 Saudi riyals, and plumbers at 1,500 Saudi riyals. Call us today on 020-222-4844 or 0721-506627 or 0733-392180. Looking for a trusted supplier for all your household hardware needs? Look no further than Competitive Hardware Limited. We provide top quality building materials including cement, all types of iron sheets, paints, PPR and PVC pipes, electric pipes, building grills, BRC and square till in various sizes. Need interior and finishing materials? We've got you covered with gypsum, gypsum rails, marine boards, ceiling boards and tanks of all sizes. For fencing, we stock barbed wire, chain link and wire mesh. And the best part, we offer free countrywide delivery with our fleet of transit trucks and pickups. Your order arrives on time, every time. Visit us in Kitengela along Namanga Highway, opposite 411 stage, or at our branches in Kitisuru and Busia. For enquiries, call us on 020-26-88888 or 0733-666632 or 0721-923248. Competitive Hardware Limited, your reliable hardware supplier.